Hello, everybody. I think it's just about time to start. We'll wait maybe a half a minute as a few more people are coming in. Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and start. A very warm welcome to all of you. This is an information session about the Master of Studies degree in Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy here at the University of Oxford. My name is Ruth Baer, and I am the director of this master's degree. And I'm going to present you with some information about this program. There will be time at the end for questions and answers. Please type yours into the Q&A, not the chat. Use the Q&A instead of the chat. I will see the questions there and be able to address them at the end. Okay, here we are. So as I was saying, this is the information session for the Master of Studies in Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy here at the University of Oxford. A brief overview of the basic facts here. It's a 2-year part-time course. It is jointly offered by the Department for Continuing Education, who is organizing this information session, and also the Department of Psychiatry in Medical Sciences. It combines in-person with online teaching, and I will show you some more details about how we do that as I'm going along. But just to know for now, it has some of each, in-person here in Oxford and online teaching. The cohort size is generally 16 students. There's a little bit of flexibility there. We will try for 16 at a minimum. We might have just a couple more than that, perhaps. We take a new cohort in alternating years, and the next one will begin in October 2024. So our application deadline is in January, and that's why we're doing this information session now. Now, a little bit about our teaching staff. That's me on the left. I'm the course director. I'm a clinical psychologist by background, have been working with mindfulness both in academia and with lots of teaching and training and supervision for quite some years. In the middle, you can see Chris Cullen. He's the senior tutor. He is also deeply experienced with evidence-based mindfulness courses and also with the Buddhist psychology foundations that are so important to MBCT. And on the right, we have our other tutor, Liz Lord, who is here in the meeting today. She has a lot of background in education and teaching and also deeply experienced with the MBCT family of curricula, which I will show you a little bit more about as we're going along. We also have some guest teachers, 2 professors, Willem Kijken, who is working here at the University of Oxford in a professor position, and Professor Mark Williams, who is now formally retired, but still very active and is one of the originators of MBCT. We're very fortunate to hear from both of those during the course, and quite a number of other guest teachers will come and share their expertise with us on topics like you see here, neuroscience of mindfulness, mental health awareness, various other professional competencies, and mindfulness in the wider world. Who is the course for, you might be wondering? The clearest thing to say about that, this course is for professionals who wish to bring mindfulness into their work. And when I say professionals, what I'm generally referring to is people who are working possibly in mental health care or physical health care in some form, or possibly in education or skills training, or in some form of stress reduction or wellness, or it might be coaching, or maybe something else. We think about this in quite a broad way. It could be something else that involves working with individuals and groups in supportive ways. So that gives you a general idea. We take students with quite a variety of backgrounds. And we take students from many parts of the world. You can see here a list of places where current students or recent students are from, many from the UK and Europe, some from North America and South America. We have students from China and India, and from Africa and Australia. So most of the continents represented. The course, I would say, is unique in some really important ways. One of them is this combination that you can see here. We have academic and professional rigor. It is a rigorous course with high standards, very comprehensive in the training, and at the same time, it has the attitudes that characterize mindfulness. Many of you probably know something about this already. Mindfulness is characterized by attitudes of kindness, openness, non-judgment, acceptance, friendly interest, things like that. And that very much pervades the way that we run the course. The atmosphere of it is warm, respectful, very supportive, and it provides space to experiment and to grow. as a mindfulness teacher. We think this is really important because learning to become a mindfulness teacher does take a lot of practice, and it's important to have an environment where you can practice without feeling that you're going to be harshly judged so that your skills can develop. Another unique quality of this course is this relationship between personal practice and professional development. It's really a key thing in learning to be a mindfulness teacher, to have your own personal practice of mindfulness, because personal development is so intertwined with professional development. And so what you'll see in the course is that personal mindfulness practice is really essential for developing the self-awareness and the insight that you need to teach mindfulness to other people. And because we recognize this, we provide a lot of support in the course, a lot of support for students to develop their mindfulness practice. We do expect you to have some mindfulness practice already, but there's a lot of support in the course for continuing that and developing it further. The main topic areas you'll see here: practice and study. Theoretical and research foundations in two main categories: psychological science. We cover a lot of psychological science, the evidence base, theories from psychological science, as well as the Buddhist psychology stream. Those two get integrated in really interesting ways in this field. There's also, as I was saying before, quite a lot of emphasis on experiential understanding of mindfulness through personal practice and reflecting on personal practice. Quite a lot of emphasis also on the teaching skills, learning how to teach mindfulness, how to teach in particular the MBCT family of curricula, and the various professional competencies that are needed to go along with that. And then general skills for communicating about mindfulness, writing about it, speaking about it, explaining it to people. The teaching and learning methods are really varied. Experiential learning, I've mentioned before, guided and independent practice. That's really important. The skills training is also really central. We do a lot of practice of teaching skills with feedback. You have the opportunity to reflect for yourself about feedback, get feedback from your peers, and feedback from the teachers. We do quite a lot of that throughout the program. Presentation and discussion, the more academic, didactic approaches, independent reading. We will suggest readings for you. We ask you to keep a journal or sort of a diary in which you note down some of your experiences with mindfulness practice and how things are going for you in the program, and that can be an important basis for additional learning. There's also tutoring and supervision. I'll say more about that in a minute. And then, of course, since this is an academic program, we have marked assignments, and I will tell you what all of those are coming up in a minute. First, a little bit about the structure of the course. As I said before, it's a two-year program, so it goes over 2 academic years. Each of those academic years includes several things. There will be 2 in-person teaching blocks. So remember, I said a combination of in-person teaching and online teaching. This is the in-person part. A teaching block is a set of consecutive days. We do 2 of those in each year here in Oxford. So you would come to Oxford for those, 1 in the autumn, 1 in the early summer. 3, 4, or 5 days for each of those. We also have retreats, 1 in-person retreat each year. For those, everybody comes to a retreat center that's here in England. It's in Devon, really lovely retreat center. And the first year it's in the winter, the second year it's in the spring, 5 or 6 days for these retreats. And then in between these in-person elements, we have online teaching days. We use the Zoom platform. Our teaching days are from 9 to 5 UK time. Many of them are once a week, and we generally use Mondays, once a week on Mondays for the Zoom teaching days. There are periods of time also where we take a break from Zoom teaching days so that you have time to work on one of the essays that's required. So these are at kind of variable intervals, some periods once a week, other periods not so many Zoom teaching days. We also have tutoring as an element of this program. Every student in the program is assigned to one of the teaching staff to be their tutor. With a tutor, you have individual meetings throughout the course, about 6 times a year as a minimum, although your tutor is available to you for anything else. Any discussion that you would like to have with your tutor about any aspect of the course, tutoring is the place to do that. So it could be that you have questions or concerns about your personal practice or about how your knowledge and skills are developing. You can also use tutoring to get feedback on drafts of your written assignments. And then anything else that might come up, a question or a concern, any topic of interest related to the course. Your tutoring meetings are a place where you can speak individually about those things, a really key element of the program. All right, now here's where I give you the rundown on the marked assignments. There are 5 of these. The first one, Essay 1, is about the psychological science foundations for mindfulness and MBCT. It is 4,000 words. We provide a small number of possible topics that you can choose from. The next one is called the reflective analysis. This is where you get to think about your experiences in your personal mindfulness practice and how that relates to what you're learning about the theory and research. So it's like an essay, but it involves more reflection on your personal experience, also 4,000 words. Then we come to Essay 2. This one is about the Buddhist psychology foundation. So you can see this balance here between the psychological science and the Buddhist psychology foundations. And again, with this one, you will be given a small handful of essay titles or topics, and you can choose the topic within Buddhist psychology that's of most interest to you. There is also a dissertation near the end of the program. This is a larger piece of writing, 10,000 words. Dissertation implies research. It's important to understand this is not the kind of research where you collect data. You will not do empirical research with statistical analyses. It's more conceptual literature review, perhaps. You have a lot of choice about your topic. Consult with your tutor to choose a topic that's of interest to you and that would be something that you'd really like to delve into, do some more intensive reading and writing about. And then there is also the teaching project. What happens here is that you will teach 2 MBCT courses each 8 weeks with supervision. You will be supervised by one of the teaching staff. You will then do a write-up of one of these courses, and you'll be given some guidance about what to write about in your write-up, 4,000 words again. Also, you will record the courses and send the recordings in, and those will be marked also for teaching competence. I mentioned before the MBCT family of curricula. There's quite a number of these now. MBCT started out, you might know this already, as a program for people with a history of depression. And on the left there, you can see the main book. We refer to it affectionately as the Green Book, though it may not be green when it's translated into other languages still. That's the original one, the original MBCT for depression. The next one, MBCT for Life, is the one that we spend most of our efforts on here in this 2-year program. MBCT for Life is an adaptation of the original one. It's designed more for the general population, and it includes a few more practices, and it has a broader emphasis, a broader theoretical foundation. So we spend most of our time on that one, but then we provide training in the other ones. This middle one here, you can see Finding Peace in a Frantic World. That's another adaptation, a little bit shorter sessions, a little bit shorter practices, used a lot in education and workplaces. Then we have a very short curriculum that's just recently been developed, and we'll train you how to teach that one too. It's just 3 one-hour sessions, very much an introduction. And then the very newest one here is the one that you see on the right, developed by Mark Williams, who I showed you a picture of before, called Deeper Mindfulness. This one is a follow-up course for somebody who has already done one of these other mindfulness courses before. So we will give you a good foundation in all of these, a whole family of curricula. All right, now to the entry requirements. What's necessary to be considered for admission to this master's? Well, the first thing, this is a university requirement, is that you need to have an undergraduate degree. So if your degree is from the UK, then the University of Oxford stipulates it needs to be a first class or strong upper second class undergraduate degree with honors. If your degree is not from the UK, then there is some good information that you can see on the university website. It's the International Qualifications page, and there you can read about if your degree is not from the UK, what does the university want it to be? Another entry requirement, and I mentioned this before, is the professional experience. So these are the same categories I showed you before: professional experience in mental or physical health care, or education or skills training, or possibly stress reduction in some form, wellness, coaching perhaps, maybe something else. It could be something else, as long as it involves working with people in supportive ways. And then also some background that will equip you to read relevant theoretical and scientific literature. So you don't have to be a researcher, you don't have to be a clinician, but you do need enough academic background that you feel that you could read original articles about mindfulness and have a reasonable understanding of them, that you feel prepared to read academic literature. We would also like you to have some knowledge of mindfulness-based approaches. I think it's important because, as I was saying before, your personal practice, your own personal involvement with this is very important for being able to teach in a competent way. So it's good to know something about it. And we would like to see, when we evaluate applications, we would like to see that there is a strong basis for your desire to learn more about this, that you have some knowledge already. Perhaps the most specific way that you might acquire some of that knowledge is by doing a Mindfulness for Life course, MBCTL, as a participant. This is a firm prerequisite. We will need you to have completed one of these courses as a participant. It can be an in-person or an online course taught by somebody with a reasonable amount of experience. And as best I know, the best source for these courses is the Oxford Mindfulness Foundation, which offers a great many of these courses at all different times of the day and different days of the week. So if you have not yet done MBCTL as a participant, I do strongly recommend that you find one of these courses. You can find them at oxfordmindfulness.org and sign yourself up for one of them. Personal experience of insight meditation practice, this can come in a variety of ways. It may be that your main experience comes from the MBCTL course that you have done, but many of our applicants have experienced insight meditation in other contexts as well. It might be with a more Buddhist orientation, or it might be from mindfulness-based stress reduction, or one of the other evidence-based courses. Experience of working with or facilitating groups. We do like to see that you have done something along these lines before, so that you have a good sense of what it means to work with a group. To work with a group of people who are perhaps seeking some form of wellness or stress reduction, or who are engaged in some activity that is designed to be supportive. And we do think about this in quite a broad way, but we're looking for something in this general category: working with or facilitating groups. And then access to suitable groups to teach MBCT. This is really important to understand. The master's does not provide you with courses to teach or groups to teach to. What we're looking for is people who are already working or have access to some setting or context or situation where there are people there who could be recruited to be in your MBCT groups. So we want to see that. Who are you going to teach? Do you have access to groups of people where you can teach MBCT and you can recruit people to be in your courses? This is the university requirement here. Proficiency in English at the university's higher level. If your first language is not English, it would be a very wise thing to go to the university website and have a look at the section where it talks about this. You may need to provide evidence that you meet this requirement. And on that part of the website, you will find a list of some recognized tests of English language proficiency, and it'll tell you what minimum score you have to get on one of these tests. So there's a good chance, if English is not your first language, you will need to do one of these tests and get a certain score and be able to submit something to the university that shows that your proficiency in English is at the level that they are interested in. It does make sense because of the essay writing requirement, and also because teaching mindfulness does require a certain amount of nuance in the language that is used. All right, now we're coming near the end of the presentation section. I'd like to show you some of the feedback from students that we have gotten recently. Here's one student who said, a welcoming, compassionate, and kind learning environment. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, and it's really important to us. This is a very core value that we hold about the way we run this master's program. We want the environment to be like this, welcoming, compassionate, and kind. Another student says the course is well structured and the pacing is just right. That's also really important to us. We've got the course, I think, well organized so that the skills build one on another in a very logical sequence, and we pace this in a way that feels comfortable, I think. The pace of learning is comfortable. And then here's another comment from a student offering feedback. The quality of the teaching amazed me. Even the hard to digest topics were explained very skillfully with patience and kindness. So I suppose there are some hard to digest topics, but we do our best to explain them as clearly as possible. All right, now here, places where you can get in touch or get more information. This first one here is the website, this content that's continuing education here at the University of Oxford, and this is the page for this master's degree. So you can read more about it there. And if you have questions, then this is an email address that will go to the course administrator, Tom Clues, who is in this meeting, and he can give you information and answer questions. So I think now I will stop sharing my screen and then have a look at what is in the Q&A section here and see if I could possibly address any questions. All right, so let me just take a moment to read this first one here. If I wanted to ask if I can apply for the course with my background. I am secondary school teacher, modern languages of 12 years. I am the mental health lead in my school, do CBT type work with the young people. I also have a master's of some sort in neuroscience and psychology of mental health. The short answer is yes. That sounds like a suitable background. There are lots of elements about your background that you have mentioned here that I think would be quite advantageous, actually. Secondary education. Now, I will say that the course does not teach you how to teach young people and children. We are teaching you MBCT, a curriculum for adults. So if that was part of the question, then I would have to say we're not going to teach you in a curriculum that's meant for kids. But still, we have somebody in the program now who is working in a similar sort of situation. This kind of thing can be really helpful for the staff in a school or secondary education. And it can also give you a really strong foundation for learning particular curriculum that can be used with kids. The CBT background is really helpful, not essential, but really helpful. That background in neuroscience, psychology, and mental health, that also sounds really helpful. So yes, I would say you can apply for the course with that background. Okay, now let me see, moving on to another one. Is there an opportunity for students to participate or assist in academic research at the University of Oxford? That is not built into the program. That would require, I think, a special circumstance. As I say, this is not really a research-oriented master's, although some people who finish this master's will then go on to do a research-oriented doctoral degree, a DPhil, as it's called here in Oxford, but it is not part of this master's itself. Are you able to share roughly how many weekly Zoom classes will take place on Mondays? Yeah, this is a person who's in full-time employment. Well, let's see now. I can tell you there are 48 days over the 2 years, but some of those, as I said before, are the in-person ones. So I'm just going to take a quick look here. I have the tentative schedule here with me. So in the autumn of 2024, after we have done the in-person teaching block in Oxford, that will be in late October, then we have 6 Mondays in November and December, 3 in January. Then we have the in-person retreat, that's in February. Then we have a few more Zoom days through March, April, and May. We just have 4. far fewer in the spring. And then we have the in-person in June. And then in year 2, we have fewer teaching days. There's less of this going on because you need more time to teach your own 8-week courses and to work on your dissertation. So I don't have an exact number, but earlier in the program, there's more. It's every Wednesday through the every Monday through the first autumn. And then it kind of eases up a bit after that. So I hope that's helpful. And perhaps you could be in touch later through the email address if you need a bit more detail to think about whether it's realistic for you to do this. Okay, let's see now. What else do we have here? After graduating the MST and MBCT, is there an opportunity to continue studying mindfulness or MBCT in a doctorate or DPhil level? Well, it's not part of this master's program. You can apply. The Professor Kaiken, whose picture I showed you earlier, he works with DPhil students. We have one student now who did this master's degree and is now a DPhil student with Professor Kaiken. He doesn't have a huge capacity to take a lot of students, but it is a possibility. Or you might apply to researchers in other universities who are working with mindfulness. So I think it provides actually a really strong foundation if you want to go on to the DPhil. If you want to go on, this provides a very strong foundation, but it does not provide any guaranteed entry into a DPhil. All right, now here's another one. I've already completed teacher training to teach you've already done the OMF teacher training program. Okay, that's the Oxford Mindfulness Foundation. Would this degree offer more than the 12-month teacher training? The teacher training itself is very much the same, and that is intentional. We work together, the master's program and the OMF non-academic teacher training. We work together so that the core teacher training is the same. But because this is an academic program, there's the more academic element. So if you would really appreciate the opportunity to read more, to think and study and write essays, then of course that's a really big part of this program that is not part of the OMF because it's not academic. Also at OMF, once you finish the 12 months, then you're kind of on your own to go and teach your 2 courses and then apply for your trained teacher certificate. Whereas in the master's, we include that. That's a big part of the second year, is teaching your 2 courses with supervision provided as part of the master's degree. There's a second retreat, so 2 retreats rather than 1. Can be really helpful to do more than 1 retreat, really can deepen your own practice and your ability to teach in an embodied way. So I think those are the main things that make the master's degree has extra ingredients that the OMF training does not have. Okay, now here's another one. I appear to meet all the other entry requirements, however, I do not have a degree. Well, we have some flexibility, but I think without an undergraduate degree, it seems odd to go on and do a master's without an undergraduate degree. I guess I would say no harm in submitting an application, and let us see how you meet all the other entry requirements. And we will be curious if your background, as I said before, equips you to read published papers, academic literature, and write essays. I think in the past we may have had 1 or 2, perhaps, people who didn't have an undergraduate degree. It's quite unusual. I guess I couldn't totally rule it out. It might be good to get in touch separately and maybe speak with me a little bit more about that. Okay, let's see. Thank you for all these questions. I'm just going through them as best I can. All right, so now let's see. Next one, someone deeply engaged in corporate responsibilities where mindfulness isn't the primary focus, also serve as a well-being coach, striving to reshape corporate culture towards a more human-centric approach. Can you advise if this course would be beneficial for someone with my dual role? Oh, yes, I definitely think so. This sounds like something we would be quite interested in. Generally, any setting where mindfulness could be introduced and there's a good argument to be made that it would be beneficial, and I think corporate settings are one of many settings where there's excellent potential for mindfulness in some form to be quite beneficial. So I would say definitely yes to that one. Okay, now next one. Could you clarify, please, if I have a bachelor's degree in finance received in the Ukraine, can I apply for the program? Yes, you can apply for the program. Finance is kind of far afield from mindfulness, it seems, but on the other hand, you may have experience with mindfulness in other ways, or experience with stress reduction or other things where you work with people in supportive ways. So that would definitely not be a rule out. I would say, yeah, go ahead, give it a try. All right. Next one, would it be possible to start this program while I am in the thesis year of my current MA program? I am not sure. I think there is, maybe the university has something to say about that. And I wonder if this might be a moment where I could turn to Tom, who is the course administrator, who might have a more detailed understanding. Is there a restriction there, Tom, that you're aware of? Can you say anything about that one?
Could you please email the MBCT inbox with that inquiry? Because that's quite a detailed one. I'd have to look into that, and it might depend on the time commitment of your existing program. So, but I think it unlikely that you'd be permitted to do a full-time study in addition to this. However, I can look into that for you and get back to you if you email it through to me. I'll respond to you individually now with the email address. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. All right, now let's see. The next person is asking, will interviews take place online or in person? And the answer there is online. The interviews will be done by Zoom. All right, now the next one says, I have done MBSR and a training in MB8. I'm a psychologist in clinical practice. Do I still need to do the MBCTL? And the answer to that is yes, we do require that as a firm prerequisite. Because we are going to emphasize it so strongly in the training. We really want everyone to have experienced that particular course as a participant. It is distinctly different in some really important ways from MBSR and also from MB8. Okay, now let's see another one. I have a PhD in Buddhist studies, and I also hold a master's degree in psychotherapy. Would having this background be beneficial for my application? Oh, yes, I think so. Well, as I've been saying before, we think quite broadly about who we would like to recruit to this program. We are quite interested in having a diverse body of students. And so, yeah, a PhD in Buddhist studies could bring a really interesting perspective. A master's degree in psychotherapy, that's quite an interesting combination because you've got the Buddhist studies background, you've got the mental health background. Yeah, I think that all sounds quite promising. Let's see now what else. The range of career paths graduates from this program have pursued. My background is in coaching for international development and humanitarian organizations. Yeah, this is good to bring this up again. We are, as I said before, very much interested in students who already have some kind of professional work going on where it would make sense to add mindfulness teaching into what you already do. It's very difficult to do mindfulness teaching as a career change, to give up what you already do and just pursue mindfulness teaching full-time. It's very difficult to do that. So we are more interested in people who've already got some sort of professional work going on, or they have access to some sort of setting or environment where it would make sense for them to add mindfulness teaching to what they already do. So what you've described here about your background sounds really appropriate, very promising. I think there's lots of potential for mindfulness teaching to add to that kind of thing that you already do. Let's see, similarities and differences of the competency assessment processes between this master's and the OMF competency assessments. OMF doesn't do a formal competency assessment. That involves recording yourself teaching a whole course, and then the recordings being evaluated by somebody who is trained in how to assess them. The master's does that. So in your teaching project, you'll teach 2 8-week courses, and then you will submit the recordings. You record the whole thing. You'll submit the recordings for one of those courses. Almost certainly it will be the second one because that one tends to go better. And then one of the teachers or tutors, or perhaps somebody else who works with us, will evaluate them. for competency assessment. So a formal competency assessment is part of the master's, but not part of the OMF teacher training. All right, now here's another one. How is this master's different from those offered in other universities in the UK? I think the focus on MBCT in particular and the whole family of MBCT curricula, I think, is quite unique. I'm not aware of any other program that does that. So if you would like to specialize in MBCT and you want to learn the whole family of MBCT curricula, I think this one is unique in that way. Okay, well, these questions keep coming. This is great. How many hours of study should I set aside? We generally say 6 or 7 each week. And what I need to take a break during the program. Well, the university has procedures if you need to take a leave of absence or I think the usual language is you might need to suspend. There are rules and procedures for how to do that. In every cohort, we generally have somebody who has some reason or other, something comes up, life goes on. Now, the university, I have found, is very supportive about this sort of thing. If something comes up, you need to suspend, then you would come back. When the next cohort gets to the same place where you suspended. So yes, the university is supportive of that sort of thing. Noted that this course is taught fully in English, but would the course be suitable for those who are wanting to teach in languages where MBCT is not commonly taught? Yes, yes, we do work with students whose intention is to teach in some language other than English. The program, as it says here, you have correctly understood, is conducted completely in English. But if your intention is to teach in some other language, then that's fine. And we can talk about how to find supervision either in that language, or many supervisors who work in English have experience now supervising people who are teaching in some language that is not English. So we know how to do that. That can work perfectly well. So yeah, that is not a barrier if that is what your intention is. In fact, we're quite pleased to be training students who can go forth and teach these courses in parts of the world where they have not traditionally been available or not much. And of course, that might involve teaching in some other language. The next one says, I read that we are supposed to be part of an Oxford college. I don't know what you mean by PPH, but yes, every student has an affiliation with a college. And for many of our students, it's Kellogg College. Not quite everybody, but most of them, it's Kellogg College. And you can see that if you apply for the program, there's a place to tick something about colleges. That happens as part of the application process. Let's see. Oh, and another person on the same topic here. I'm a bit confused about which college to select within the application process. Almost everybody is in Kellogg for our program, and it is kind of nice to have everybody in the same place. So I would say Kellogg would be your first choice. And then let's see, there's another part to this one. My background as a certified mindfulness facilitator and doing my certificate in mindfulness and psychotherapy. Oh, that's all fine. Yes, that's perfectly fine as background. Yeah, the MBCTL course as a participant is still a firm prerequisite, as I've said before. Okay, now here's another person who's saying, I don't have a degree, doing my level 2 teacher advancement intensive in MBCT with Brown. Okay, currently working in a psychiatry clinic, providing one-to-one MBCT. Okay. Also conducting group MBCT for an addiction recovery center. Will above be considered? That is quite a substantial list of things in your background experience. So I would say the same thing I said to the other person who doesn't have an undergraduate degree. It's fine to go ahead and apply, and we will take a close look and think about it. And we might want to speak with you a little bit more about that also. Also, does this master equip one to be competent to teach, teacher to be? I think maybe what you're asking about there is to train other people to teach. And the answer to that is no. The master's does not teach you to train other people to be teachers. All right. Now, let's see. OMF has formal competency assessment process, which is optional and takes place after the 12-month teacher training. How is the certificate of competence awarded by the OMF similar or different from any certificate of competency? Well, here we award the master's degree, and the master's degree includes the competency assessment. So we don't actually give you a separate certificate. You wouldn't need one because you've got this master's degree from the University of Oxford. In terms of the requirements for competence and how it is assessed, those are the same, using a tool called the MBI TAC, which I don't have time to explain here, but if you're asking this question, you probably already know what that is. The next question is about cost. I do not have the exact numbers at hand, but they are on the website, and so you can have a look at that. Other costs to factor in would be primarily travel and accommodation for those parts of the program that are in person. You would need to come to Oxford for 2 blocks per year, and then the retreat center, which is here in England, it's in Devon. Once a year, you would need to go there. You don't have to pay for accommodation at the retreat center. All the costs for the retreat itself, both of them, are included in your fees. But getting yourself there is something that you would have to shoulder the cost of. And then I should perhaps just mention that technology, I think in today's world, most people who would apply for this master's already have adequate computer and technology so that you can participate fully. But you do have to have good enough technology to do the Zoom days. I think Tom is just putting something into the chat. You can refer to that. What is the average age of the cohort? Gosh, I don't know. That's an interesting question, but I guess I could say that we have quite a range. People come to this program, some of them having done a lot of work in their lives, other things in their lives, and then come to the program. This is one of the reasons so many of our students are at Kellogg College in particular, because Kellogg specializes in students who have been out into the world and are coming back to do more education. Okay, next one says, when is the pre-course offered for MBCTL? Oh, they're offered, there are many offerings. If you go to oxfordmindfulness.org and look for find a course, MBCTL is offered. There are several new ones starting every month. They're offered at different times of the day and different days of the week, and it's an 8-week course. So it would take 8 weeks once you start to finish it. Now, let's see. How does the interviewing process work for an international applicant? Well, there are some dates in March. I'm not sure if I can tell you exactly what the interview dates are, but if you are invited for an interview, then we will tell you what dates are available. And we generally interview all day, 9 to 5, more or less, for 3 or 4 days consecutively. So we will find a time when you can Zoom in. It might be at a rather odd time of the day for you, depending on what time zone you're in. But, we will try to be as flexible as possible about scheduling interviews in such a way that people don't have to be up in the middle of the night to do them. Okay, to what extent is this course relevant for me if I plan to work mainly in one-to-one therapeutic coaching settings with clients in the future? One-to-one, well, that's an interesting question. We don't do any particular teaching on how to do mindfulness teaching in a one-to-one format. We will teach you how to teach these courses, and they are all designed for group format. So I think that would really be up to you if you think it would be useful for you to do all of this training when your main intention is to do one-on-one therapeutic. That might be something that we could have a conversation about. If you would be willing to email me, then it might be helpful if I could learn a bit more about what you want to do and maybe think about it in a little more detail. Okay, now I seem to have come to the end of the questions, and I can see that we have actually overrun the time. We were supposed to be finished 5 minutes ago. So thank you, everybody, for all of the interest that you have expressed. If you have more questions, you have the email for Tom. He can refer you to me if there are things that would be better for me to try to answer. And I am happy to meet with you if you'd like to have a phone conversation or a Zoom meeting or something like that, then we can do that too. So hope it's been helpful. Hope to see applications from some of you, and thank you very much.